Are you all set?
I just sent a request to Jamie to allow me to record.
Okay. Let me know when you have that request fulfilled.
Recording in progress.
All set.
All righty. Good evening. My name is Peter Basserman. I am chairman of Branford's Inland Wetland Commission. I'll now open the commission's semi-monthly meeting of May 8th, 2025. It is now 7 o'clock. This evening's meeting will be conducted as a virtual meeting using the Zoom platform in accordance with Connecticut Public Act 22-3. Documents are available at the town hall or on the agency's webpage for this evening. The final agenda for tonight's meeting was filed yesterday, May 7th, and is also posted on the town's website. Any changes to the staff? Any changes to the staff regarding the agenda for this evening?
No.
Okay. Branford Community Television will be recording this evening. We're thankful for their time and effort in providing the service to the community at large. I recognize there's maybe several members of the public who may have not participated in the past in the wetland meeting. As participants in this evening's proceeding, be conscious of positioning your camera so that your face is visible on the recording, especially when speaking. Also, to ensure a complete and accurate record of discussions each time a statement or comment is made during tonight's meeting, party speaking must announce his or her name prior to the comment. Those wishing to speak can use the raise your hand feature on the Zoom platform. Once the meeting is begun, please mute your microphone to avoid any kind of unwanted feedback. And I will recognize those wishing to speak prior to the comments. The intent is to have the meeting run smoothly and record accurately. Any additional comments from staff this evening before we proceed?
No, this time.
Okay. Well, I'll take a roll call of the commissioners. Commissioner Begeman?
Commissioner Begeman, present.
Commissioner Gurkowski?
Commissioner Gurkowski, present.
Commissioner Armrod?
Commissioner Armrod, present.
And Commissioner Basserman, obviously present. We have 4 commissioners present this evening, at least by my screen. Therefore, we have a quorum. All commissioners are seated and able to vote this evening. Any recusals from the commissioners this evening on any of the agenda items?
Yes, Commissioner Ormrod. I will recuse myself from item 6A, 157 or Beacon Hill, for the same reasons I've mentioned in previous meetings.
Just for 6A, correct. That's consistent. That's great. I guess at this point, the next item on our agenda is the minutes of April 24th, 2025, which was a regular meeting of the commission. It was one of our shortest. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
This is Commissioner Gurkowski. I make a motion to approve the minutes from our last regular meeting.
And is there a second on that?
Commissioner Armrod, I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain. I was not present.
As noted on the agenda for tonight's meeting, the next item is Inland Wetland 250101, which is 19 to 37 Gould Lane, proposed subdivision of 3 residential lots. This is an item that was continued from our March 27, 2025 meeting. Commissioners that are seated for this application this evening are required to be fair and reasonable and independent, not predisposed to any outcome. Commission must decide the merit on the application from the facts as they appear on the record, from their own personal observation and technical expertise. Permit decisions must be concluded within timeframes specified by the Connecticut statutes and our regulations. Material since the last meeting has been submitted and is again available on the webpage and at the town hall for review. This evening, we will begin with the applicant's review of the materials submitted, followed by questions and comments from the commission. After that, there will be a period of public comment. I'm hopeful that we can conclude the public hearing in a reasonable time frame. Therefore, I am not imposing a time limit for this evening. We'll see how things go as to whether that will be necessary as we proceed along here. So I guess who is going to start?
Amy,
for the
Frederick, and the
applicant?
wetland agent, real quick before we move on. Katie has her
Okay.
hand raised.
Oh,
Thank
Yes,
you. Katie Blanchett, Inland Wetland Associate. Peter, I didn't want to disturb your spiel there and have you get lost, but I have a question about the approval of the minutes. Just for clarification, since we don't have a full quorum that voted on the minutes, are they approved, or is it majority
It's-
vote, or is it?
Yeah, it's okay because there was an abstention, not a recusal.
Got it. Thank you very much.
thank you, Katie. Who will start for the applicant? Mr. Wasberg, go ahead.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Ronald Wasmer. I'm a professional engineer, licensed land surveyor. My office is at 158 Research Drive, Milford, Connecticut, and I'm here representing the applicant. I'm going to review we've made some changes to the plan, minor changes, and I will review those and then answer any questions. So one of the comments that we had from the town engineer was to accommodate the 100-year storm. We've worked with him and submitted additional storm drainage design as well as plans. And the storm drainage system that we have designed now will accommodate the 2, 5, 10, 25, 50, and 100-year storms such that there's no increase in peak flow nor increase in volume. We accommodated this by enlarging the galley systems and also adding a level spreader. The galley systems are generally in the same location as where they were previously. They're just larger. It's 2 rows of galleys versus 1 that accommodates the 100-year storm. And then we had a slight amount of runoff to the rear of lot number 2 that couldn't be captured in the galley system. So we put in a shallow level spreader uphill of the limit of construction.
Excuse me, this is Commissioner Basserman. Did you say you weren't looking to screen share?
I'm not at the moment, no.
I
Jamie, can
screen
you?
share.
Yeah, can
Yeah.
you?
I guess the grading and drainage plan would be appropriate. So just to review, now the galley system on lot number 1 is in a similar location as to what you had previously seen. We added a second row of galleys to accommodate the 100-year storm uphill of the other galley systems. On lot number 3, similar, I'm sorry, lot number 2, I'm sorry, Jamie. Lot number 2, similar scenario. You will see towards the rear of the lot, there's a shallow level spreader there, and that does also have plantings in it that Matt can respond to discuss it at his turn. And then on lot number 3, again, same scenario. We increased the size of the galleys, and we've made a slight change in the size of the house, reduced it slightly, changed the floor elevation slightly. We've graded the lot closest to the driveway to number 38 Beechwood Road to prevent any runoff from going onto that driveway. We've accomplished this by a shallow drainage swale with a yard drain that connects to the galley system. So that's the general changes to the drainage plan. We've added some additional tables of information that were requested by various commissioners, and that would be located on the grading and drainage plan. We've added a table of the groundwater that we observed when we did our test pits. It's on the right-hand side of the plan. So there's a test pits and the elevation in which we encountered groundwater. We could look at the erosion control plan now.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Before you move on, can you blow that up a little bit, Jamie? Yeah, it's better. Thank you. So, am I to understand that these elevations, how different are they from the previous plan?
They're not different. They were not included in the last plan, and that was a request by the commission.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's a couple additions to the erosion control plan. So on this plan, wait for that one. Can we switch to the erosion control plan, Jamie?
I think this is the erosion control plan.
Oh, there it is. Okay. So there was a question that arose as a result of the site walk. There were some storm drainage pipes to the rear of lot number 2. We've surveyed those and depicted them on the plan. They're labeled as existing scrap pipes to be removed during the enhancement planting. I believe it was Commissioner Begman that walked over in that area during the site walk. We've added a table onto this erosion control plan that was requested by the commission just above the erosion control narrative. And this table lists the lot number, the total parcel area, the area exclusive of wetlands, the development area, the upland review area, and the impervious area. If you can slide that maybe a little to the left, I see people's faces are in the way. There you go. Thank you. So this, we'll pause here for a second so you can see the lot areas of the various lots. The upland area, which we would call the lot area exclusive of wetlands. The development area, that's the area within the silt fence. We're calling that the limit of construction. The area of each lot that is within your 100-foot review area, and then the impervious area, which is the driveways, the roofs, sidewalks, stuff like that. Let's see. I've already mentioned, but we've done revisions to the grading on lot number 3, particularly along the driveway. And we've added some details for the benefit of the commission as well as the town engineer, and that's on the detail sheet. And that shows thank you, Jamie. That shows the elevations of the existing driveway, the elevation of the proposed house and driveway and garage, the existing ground elevation, and the proposed grading to demonstrate that we're not grading onto the neighbor's property, nor are we draining any water towards the neighbor's property. There's been Matt has revised his landscaping plan, but I'll let him discuss that. I think it was yesterday I got a something from Jamie. I'm not sure what to call this. It's kind of a summary of your requirements, the dates, the fees, narratives. It's a checklist is what it is. There was a couple questions that Jamie had highlighted and read, and I'm going to read the questions and then give you an answer. Will the proposed houses have footing drains? And my answer is there's no footing drains proposed at this time. Again, these houses are for feasibility. A potential home buyer may wish to have a different house. If it's significantly different than what we've proposed here, it'll come back to your commission. And if at that point they want to add a footing drain, that could be added to the plan. But right now we don't show any. There's a question whether the street trees will provide any conflict with the function of the proposed groundwater infiltrations. My answer to that is no. There's a significant trees and shrubs being planted as an enhancement adjacent to the wetlands. There's a couple street trees. One of them's relatively close to the galley system. But it's a maple tree, and I don't believe that will cause a lot of problems with the underground galley system. Question: suggest clarification should be obtained regarding the clearing limits, RE sheets ES1 and LP1. So it's my stance that the clearing limits is what's labeled on the erosion control plan. Matt's landscaping plan has kind of a canopy bubble along the wetlands, and I suppose at time the canopy of the trees will extend closer into the lot than the clearing limits as proposed. So at some point that canopy will go beyond the clearing limits away from the wetlands towards the house. The clearing limits was kind of an arbitrary 15 foot in general parallel to the wetlands. If a significant tree is encountered within a few feet of the clearing limits, the developer can make a decision as to whether that tree can stay, or we can consult with the landscape architect. In general, we're not looking to take any additional trees down, but we do need to make a delineation of the clearing limits for the purposes of your plan. So there could be some flexibility to move those further away from the wetlands, but the general idea is the clearing limits is shown by the silt fence.
Commissioner Basserman, back to the galleys and the stormwater. Is it your testimony then that no stormwater leaves the lots 1, 2, and 3?
Stormwater does not leave the lots to any greater extent than what it does today.
Okay.
And your town engineer has reviewed our drainage report. Suggestion clarification be obtained regarding the extent of the proposed lawn area. So I would say for the intent of this application, the lawn area would be the clearing limits, which is the silt fence. I would expect to see lawn area planted within that area when this project is complete. There is a significant area to the rear of lot number 2. We don't have any proposed development. It's kind of a transitioning from an open field to a forest. There's cedar trees in there and some saplings. I suppose at some point someone may want to plant something back there or create a lawn area. We've coming up again in your checklist, it says, would the applicant be willing to provide notification on the deed for the 3 building lots regarding IWWA jurisdiction? Yes, we would definitely do that. That would provide notice to any future homeowner that the rear of lot number 2 is subject to inland wetland regulations. In our current application, we're not proposing any work back there. And then there's a comment about the wood duck boxes, and I'll let Matt address that one. So I believe I reviewed the changes that we've made to the plans. I think we did our best to accommodate the questions that were raised by the commission, or the additional information raised by the commission, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Maybe I'll turn it over to Matt first, and he can review his landscaping plan, and then however you want to do it. If you want to ask questions now, or if you want to listen to Matt.
Yeah, just Mr. Bassman, I just as soon if the commission has questions for you that we address them at this point. Can you indicate again the clearing, for instance, lot 2, you're saying the lawn would go right up to the clearing limits, you believe?
So if we go back to the erosion control plan, sheet number 1. So just right about where Jamie has her hand there, it says clearing limits, and it points to the silt fence. So we're not proposing to clear anything in the rear of lot number 2 at the moment. Well, I don't have any plans in the future either, but it is land that will belong to that lot. It's upland area, and we will put notification markers towards closer to the wetlands that they're getting close to wetlands, as well as notification in the deed. So when they buy this lot, they'll realize that they'll be on notification that there's wetlands on this property, and any activity beyond what's conducted in this application would require notification to your commission. You could decide what you need to do at that point.
And just a follow up, what's the distance between the clearing limit on lot 2 and the wetland demarcation?
So the clearing limits runs close to the proposed split rail fence. That split rail fence is intended to be a physical demarcation to prevent intrusion into the wetlands. Also, along that split rail fence, there will be notification placards. So that's approximately 15 feet from the split rail fence to the wetlands.
Gotcha.
Beyond that 15 feet is the area that we've entitled as a wetland enhancement. That's the main focus of the landscaping plan that Matt Pop is going to discuss.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. I don't think you can address this particular issue. It's just a concern that I have. I understand that the lots are going to be pre-sold. The owner of the land is not planning on doing any pre-construction until the lots are sold. But my concern is it going to be strongly recommended to the potential buyers that they stick to the proposed plans and positioning of the house on the property? Because they're only going to have to come back for any changes to the commission. And I just don't want to see more tie-ups and things like this. This is where I have my problems. These houses are not going to be pre-built. They're not going to be existing. You're selling them on spec. So,
well, we're intending to sell the lots, and the potential purchaser will be aware of the restrictions based upon the permit that presumably you'll issue, as well as notification in their deed. I'm sure the owner will strongly encourage them to follow quite similar to what we have here. Otherwise, they're going to struggle. And you can certainly, if someone comes in with a house that's 5 times as big as what's on here and 2 feet away from the wetlands, you're certainly entitled to deny that application.
You know, I'm Commissioner Goklowski again. I'm not trying to stop any development or anything. I'm just, I've seen it happen in my short time on the commission that lots have been approved, and then a year or 2 years later they come back and they want to put a 2,000 square foot larger house on the same postage stamp that they originally were approved for. So that's my only concern.
Well, I believe some of the common verbiage is prudent and feasible alternatives. Right? So if someone comes in with something that's grossly different, you can certainly tell them that there's a prudent and feasible alternative, which is what we've presented here.
Amy Frederick and the wetland agent. I mean, I don't think anyone can speak for how the individual lots will get developed. I mean, basically the commission has to review the project that's before them now. And if something comes back later that's different, then that's something, that unfortunately might be the case. But of course, the merits of that application would have to be reviewed, and they'd have to go through the same stormwater calculations, treatment, and I think the commission just really needs to focus on this application and what's before you. If anything changes, last course of action when they submit to the building department, we'll look at it and say, wait, we need a wetland permit if it's different from what is on the subdivision. Also, these are pretty noticeable lots. I'm sure that if somebody started clearing and before trying to get a building permit, we would receive calls and we would get in touch with whoever is doing that clearing.
This is Commissioner Bagman. I just have a question so that I understand the way the galleys work. There's no water coming out of them. So if my understanding of those numbers is right, no water comes out of them. So the water goes into them, and then what happens to the water?
Infiltrates into the ground.
Okay, so
infiltration galleys. They're hollow. The bottom there's no bottom to them. They sit on native soil, and it allows the size of it holds the water back for a certain amount of time, roughly 24 hours, and that allows that rainfall that's captured from the impervious areas to be held for a duration of time and then infiltrate into the ground in a rate and a volume similar to the way a rainfall would land on the lot as it is today, and also infiltrate into the ground. There is water that does run off the lot now. That will be water that leaves the lot when these are developed, but the rate and the volume are no greater than what is existing right now.
This is Commissioner Bagman. So when it says 0 cubic feet per second or whatever,
and so under certain conditions, certainly the smaller storms, so your regulations are for the 1, the 2, the 5, the 10, the 25. So under the smaller, because we're accommodating the larger storms of a 100-year storm, which is 8+ inches of rain, at the 1-year storm, which is 2.5 inches of rain, there's no runoff leaving the galley system. At the largest of rainfall, there is a small amount of water that leaves the galley system, and that is equal to or less than what leaves the site right now. Kind of look at the site as a whole. We put the galleys in a place where we can capture the most runoff. We direct the roof and the driveway towards the galley system. There's two intents. It's water quality, to clean as best as you can any rainfall from driveways and roofs, and then there's the quantity of water. So,
thank you.
Anything else from this Commissioner Basserman? Anything else for Mr. Wasmer from the commission? You want to turn it over to Mr. Pop at this point, sir?
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Matthew Pop, landscape architect, professional wetland scientist with Environmental Land Solutions. I prepared the planting plan that you see before you. There's basically 3 changes since the last revision, since I prepared it. The first one is the plantings were just adjusted accordingly based on Ron's revised the site plans, and we enhanced some of the areas by planting more plants. So the one was just basically making the planting plan match the grading plan and the drainage plan. The second one is on the note number 3. We kind of go, actually note number 9, I think it is, the bottom one, about removing invasive plants. So that would be done 3 times a year during the growing season. It would be done by hand. The plants just get cut, so there's no pesticides being used. And then the cuttings would be allowed to dry out somewhere on the site or off the site, like on the driveway, before they're removed off the site, because we don't want those plants spreading, off the site and growing there. So that's note number 9. And then the third one was the wood duck boxes. I think one of the neighbors mentioned that there were wood ducks. He's seen wood ducks in the swamp. So we proposed 2 wood duck boxes. The locations are approximate. Again, they'd just be placed, several feet above the water elevation on a tree. For maintenance, I probably would just leave them as is and not maintain them, just so that someone's not going into the swamp at the wrong time of year, during the nesting season. I just would want to make sure that the wood duck boxes, that the entrance holes are reinforced, with a thicker piece of wood or a piece of metal, just so if there's like a squirrel, they're not going around chewing the holes and making them bigger than they're supposed to be. So those are basically the changes. Just maybe we'll get back to the street trees. I think we still got the same amount of street trees. I didn't see a problem with the trees locations in regards to the detention galleries. I think I had them 15 feet away or 10 feet away. That one tree on the top lot in the top left, we needed to shift that further to the right, and we wanted to make the trees 15 feet away from the detention galleries. That would be fine too. I think the street trees are important just to reduce thermal pollution. Again, it's great for wildlife habitat and just for aesthetics to come into play. So those are the 3 changes. If there's any questions, I'm here to answer them.
I'm going to add a comment to what Matt said. There is a table for each lot, because prior to the prior submission, we hadn't broken down the number of species in which lot they were located on. So now there's a key species, type, and number for each lot.
Yeah, I break that out. If you have one plant list, then it's, if there's any bonding or it just gets difficult later on I think for the staff. So if you have a separate plant list for each lot, it makes it much easier. So everybody knows what the intent is.
Especially if the intent is to develop the lots independently. And just one extra comment on the street trees. I do think planning and zoning requires street trees be within the right of way, so that would move the trees slightly further away from those infiltrators as well.
So they put them in the right of way?
I think so. Don't hold me to that. They'll let you know.
That would be, some towns don't, but that's a great spot for them. So hopefully they do. That's the pot. Yeah.
This is Commissioner Batsman. Jamie, you've looked at the details on the planting plan as provided and are okay with the selected species and location?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of really good species on here. And then in addition to this planting plan, Matt Pop also provided kind of an assessment report, not really an assessment report, but a supplemental, assessment of the wetlands and kind of the rationale behind the development of this plan.
Selection.
So,
Okay.
All of the plants are native.
Great.
This is Commissioner Bergman. The maintenance in those swales is nothing. It's basically just to let the plants grow. Is that correct?
Yes. Now, if one dies within the first year or so, or 2 years, they should be replaced. But the intent is just to leave them as is. The first year probably be good to spray them for deer repellent on them. So sometimes when the plants come from the nursery, they're more edible, it seems like, than the ones that are just grown out in the wild. So usually the first year or two, they get sprayed.
Jamie Frederick, and the wetland agent. I think the planting plans here are things the commission would typically look at a 5-year monitoring for, given that they're immediately adjacent to the wetland area. So basically monitoring of that invasive species management and survival of the plantings, making sure there's at least 85% survival 5 years. And usually the commission requests a bond to cover the cost of the plantings and the monitoring in association with that.
Jamie, I have a question about the bonding.
Sure.
Is that something that you prepare, or do we prepare that?
That would be something typically that, so usually the condition language has the permit holder submit an estimate for review by town staff.
Okay.
And basically we make sure that it's somewhat reasonable to costs that we've been seeing.
Sure.
And go from there.
We would like to have 3 separate bonds. Is that possible? Because there's 3 lots here.
We could make sure that that's addressed in the conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Pop from the commission? This is Commissioner Basserman. Jamie, you had a number of questions identified in red. Mr. Wasmer referred to them in his discussion. And you had the draft report that included them. Have all of them been addressed to the satisfaction of staff?
I think so. I think the one outstanding comment I may have is, I think for clarification, and it might be because I think it specifies tree line to remain, and I'm not entirely, I think there's a lot of like more shrubby type vegetation back here, but I think for clarification purposes, for anyone looking at these plans, it would be ideal to maybe have revise this to be like tree and shrub line to remain and have it follow the limits of disturbance so that it doesn't look like, oh, look, we can clear this whole back part of the lot too if they're just looking at this plan. So basically revising the tree line to be tree and shrub line to remain and have it align with the erosion control plan.
Let's see. So your concern is really the rear of lot number 2. Is that?
In regards to the clarification of the limits of disturbance, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So basically modifying this line to match that limit of disturbance on the erosion control plan.
Gotcha.
Right here.
Yep.
It's a small visual, but based on past experience, I think it's worthwhile.
Understood. Yep.
I think that could be addressed as a condition of approval if the commission thought it was relevant. I don't know that it needs to be, because I think we can just reference to match the sediment and erosion control plan. The other lots, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Commissioner Bassman, anything else, Jamie?
I don't think I have any specific outstanding questions at this time.
Okay, are we at the point where we can see if there's public comment that is desirous of comment at this time? I can't see everyone. Oh, Mr. Murray, I see your hand is raised.
Good afternoon or good evening. Thank you. I got many questions regarding this. I hope not to exceed the timeline, but I certainly like to make sure they all get addressed. My first question is all this proposed development comply with the local, state, and federal wetland laws like the Clean Water Act, the Environmental Impact Assessment, and Biodiversity Acts in the area for all the rare species that are there?
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. The Inland Wetland Commission only has purview over inland wetlands and watercourses in the town of Branford under the state Inland Wetlands Act. So that's the only thing that this commission is reviewing.
So this only, just for clarity, this only reviews the town's concerns, not what passes up to the state?
So
Could it be less of a standard?
So
Mr. Commissioner Basserman, given the references that you provided, yes, we don't consider federal laws that are not associated with inland wetlands and watercourses.
I don't know that it's less. I think it's just different. And like I said, the inland wetlands and watercourses regulations of the town of Branford are based off of the state statute. So they're reviewing it within the context of that act, and they don't have jurisdiction to look at other agencies and what their jurisdictions and what their requirements are. The commission can only look at what its own regulations require.
I just didn't know, and forgive me for lack of knowledge in this topic. I do appreciate all you do. I just wanted to make sure that what was being done here today is in compliance with state and federal regulations and acts as well, so that I'm not, someone else mentioned, not going back and forth on the same topic later with different agencies.
That ultimately falls on the applicant to confirm, all the different approval types that they're going to need.
Okay, then I think my next question, unless somebody else's hand pops up, I'm going to just go ahead and going if that's okay, and stop me if it's not. I think it was Matt Pop that brought up the wood duck population, but also then presented a list of plant life by lot in what was there, and I hadn't seen anything with regards to the wildlife that could be impacted by this, by any runoff, any other development. Yesterday and including this morning, I literally had, and took videos of this, a rare turtle walk through my yard, around my yard, and into that wetlands area, which by the way is now wet, and was brought up in the last meeting that somebody should review it during a different time of year. I'd recommend looking at this tomorrow or the next day. So in short, has that been addressed? Is the animal life in those zones as well, or is it just the plant life?
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. So the commission only has jurisdiction to regulate impacts to wildlife as they relate to physical impacts to the wetland. It's very restrictive what the agency has jurisdiction over in regards to wildlife. And that's based off of case law and past interpretation of what the statutes enable the commission to regulate.
That was a little confusing to me. I apologize. My understanding of the Wetlands Commission is to protect areas for the public, areas for the animals, and please correct me if I'm wrong, or just state where we're at.
So,
Mr. Basserman, I think what I understand Jamie's comment is, if in fact there was an impact, negative impact to wetland plant life, that's something that we could consider. You take a bridge too far when you take it to this animal species itself.
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland Agent. I don't think it's so much that per se, but again, like so basically the commission regulates activities and activities specifically that impact wetlands and water courses. And it's the physical characteristics of a wetland or water course. So while yes, the protection of the wetland resource, the preservation of that wetland and the services it provides communities and the state as a whole, and the wildlife that use it, the commission doesn't have the jurisdiction to regulate to specifically protect wildlife. It has to relate to how that impact to that wildlife is impacting the wetland resource. So generally speaking, I'd say that we have the information that we generally require in that review context.
It sounds like I have to go to a different commission for that answer because I am concerned about the wildlife. But I guess in addition to that, if that is not the concern of this committee, I understand that. And I'll try to hold my questions to that. I did hear that with the 100-year storm that there would be runoff into those areas. By the way, for the record, and I apologize, Brian Murray, 38 Beechwood Road, the property adjacent to Lot 3, which the proposed increase in fixing the drainage, I haven't had the privilege of seeing. Would like to definitely get a copy of that because that would absolutely impact my property. And if someone would take the time to look at that area, they would see the water that flows through there currently cannot handle any additional. There's zero room for that. My concerns with respect to the property and the wetlands in that regards is this is great. I'm all for development anywhere. What I'm not for is damaging my own property lines as well. What happens long term here? Let's say this commission approves this goes through the next steps and gets passed. Somebody buys this property and develops. Who's going to be responsible long term for the results of what's decided here today if that goes in favor of the developer?
I'm sorry, what was the last part of your question?
Who's responsible if these plans that are decided upon today go 1 year, 2 years in these, forgive me, the cement structures that are put in there to retain the water from dripping in, don't hold, maintains them, continues to maintain these until the point that there's a failure, who at that point becomes responsible? Does that fall on me as the property owner adjacent to it? Does it fall on the town? Does the developer have any responsibility or the new property owner?
It would fall ultimately on the property owner.
Which one, me or the other one?
The property owner of the stormwater system.
Gotcha. So those are my concerns with those respects. A lot of the other stuff has to do with the erosion in area. And I would implore that somebody from the committee please come take a look today, tomorrow, the next day, and see where the water lines really are versus when they were last looked at when it was dry. It does make a substantial difference in this area. For instance, there's a small pond in my backyard today.
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland Agent. Matt Pop, can you speak a little bit to how wetlands are delineated?
Sure. I'm not a soil scientist, but
sorry, I thought you were.
But I could explain. Wetlands in Connecticut are defined by soil types. The state federal wetlands are done by soils, vegetation, and hydrology, but the state uses just soils. They use soils because they don't change from day to day. So if you have a major flood and the water is higher than typical, the soils don't change. The soils take years and years to change. That's why the state uses them. So again, if there's a major drought and the water's table is down low, those soils are still, wetland soils would still be there. Wetland soils are generally gray and dull, and upland soils are usually bright and kind of brownish in Connecticut. So that's typical.
Sorry to throw you on the spot there.
No,
Thought you had the overlapping credentials.
no.
But yeah,
Thank you.
so I mean that is one thing that is kind of unique about Connecticut's interpretation of wetland delineations is that it is based on soils. So you can delineate a wetland confidently any time of year. So
The only problem
We're
with that
educated today. Thank you.
the only problem with the soils is if you dredge a pond, you put those wetland soils somewhere else in upland, it gets confusing, why there's wetland soils up high, outside the wetland area.
Understood.
Anything else, Mr. Murray?
Yeah, actually, I'm just curious as to what input the public has on this in the decision-making process at all, or if I'm spinning my wheels here, or if I'm making a difference today.
Well, as I said at the beginning of the meeting, we have a period of public comment. The commission will conclude the public hearing and then go into deliberations with what's on the record and has to make a decision based on the evidence that's been provided and the information that was gathered during the public hearing.
I
Frederick and the
appreciate
wetland
that.
agent. And there has been some, I mean, so we did have public comment at a previous public hearing and the applicant did do some revisions. I'll just screen share real quick again because you had mentioned you didn't have a chance to see the stormwater revisions. So I believe that this is your driveway here,
Correct.
the proposed driveway and associated house for lot 3, and kind of this shallow swale that was discussed earlier to help capture stormwater and send it through the swale and the yard drains to the rear towards the galleries. And then Mr. Lassmer, can you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the driveway is proposed to have a curb.
That's correct.
Yeah, 6-inch bituminous curb to help prevent any of the drainage from the driveway flowing that way. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Does that adhere to the 100-year storm as well? Just my own knowledge.
Yes, this storm system was designed for the 100-year storm.
One thing I do not see on this map, and forgive me if it's the first time I'm able to see this. I was unable to download or review the minutes from the last meeting based on clicking on the link on the town site. But what I do notice that's in this area is there seems to be power lines of some sort or wires that run through there as well. And this might be for zoning and not for this meeting. But I don't understand how they would be able to do any renovations there with those issues alongside the driveway there as well. My driveway.
When you say
or in
power
between
lines,
the
you
two,
mean,
sorry.
oh, I'm sorry?
There's an electrical wire that runs from a lamp that looks like it's right around where that clearing limits cross sections with the road. And that wire runs back through over where the proposed driveway is and right alongside mine where there is a cable and electric box, which probably is what powers my house down below. That's from visual, not from some map or anything that I was providing.
Mr. Murray, this is Commissioner Goklowski. Are you saying that you have the light post that you're talking about? Is that on your property?
No, it is not. It's on what I believe is town property. It's at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Okay.
On where you see Beechwood Road.
Yep.
There's a marking there that says clearing limits, and to the left of that, you see like a .31.6. Approximately right about there, you'll see a wire that runs from a lamp that provides light to the circle. through and back over toward my driveway at 38 Beechwood in between the proposed driveway, which I've noticed before because it's sort of unsightly and I kind of wanted to clean it up for the end of my driveway.
I'm gonna try and find our sidewalk photos, see if I have a
Jamie,
picture.
for the benefit of the commission, if you look at the existing condition survey, which is sheet 2, there you go. The existing transformer is indicated just below the word road, and the symbol closest to the catch basin, it looks like a little bit of a star there. That's a street lamp. Presumably, the underground wires run from the transformer to the street light and from the transformer back towards the resident that's speaking at number 30. Prior to any excavation, the utility company will come and mark out exactly where the underground wire is. It's a state requirement, call before you dig. And if need be, it will be relocated or it will be accommodated with during construction to prevent any damage to that wire as a result of construction.
I assume it falls under the same regulations, the powers that service my property in the back and the adjacent neighbor. Also, probably not a question for wetlands. I apologize.
Does that wrap it up, Mr. Murray?
One other question I think is relevant to the Wetlands Commission. If I missed space a little bit, I apologize for taking up your time. But just curiosity, what buffer zones are proposed between the development and the actual wetlands? And when it's to Matt Pop's delineation of soil, what is the actual proposed wetlands between the construction and where that is? Is there a certain footage? How does that play out?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So just to clarify, Matt Pop did not delineate the wetlands, and apparently is not a wetland scientist. But they did have a wetland scientist delineate the wetlands, and from that line, it's approximately 15. It's 15 feet at its closest point, and it deviates out to about 20 feet in some places.
Is that 15 feet from construction or 15 feet from grass property line area?
Correct. And they're proposing a split rail fence, I believe, a fence of some sort at that limit to kind of help provide a physical and visual barrier to prevent expansion. If the applicant wants to add anything to that, feel free.
I apologize. I couldn't hear that last part, Jamie.
Oh, I just said if the applicant wants to add to that to feel free.
So if we look at the zoning layout plan, which doesn't show a lot of the wetland enhancement information, but you'll see which is the fourth sheet in the plan set. Jamie?
Am I not screen sharing? Sorry.
No. So on this plan, we've indicated the closest dimension from the proposed house to the wetlands. On lot number 3, the closest dimension is away from the driveway that he's questioning, but that's 37 feet. The wetlands are to the rear. It's significantly greater from the house to the wetlands. On lot number 1, from the house to the wetlands is 57 feet. And then if you want to flick back to the erosion control plan, we'll just reiterate the Um, so you can see the house. We're looking at lot number 1. The wetlands, the proposed fence is approximately 15 feet away from the wetlands. In between the wetlands and the fence, we're proposing enhancement plantings. These are wildlife species, native wetland species. So to try to summarize, the house is approximately 58 feet to the wetlands. The lawn area would be approximately 15 feet at its closest to the wetlands, and in between the wetlands and the lawn area is a split rail fence, a silt fence to be installed during construction to prevent sedimentation and erosion into the wetlands. The split rail fence will serve as a physical barrier from the future homeowner not claiming they didn't know about the wetlands. Along the split rail fence, there's notification placards that state that the wetlands are just beyond the fence, as well as the enhancement plantings that will improve the habitat between the proposed house and the wetlands. And lot number 3 is similar. The distance from bear with me 1 second. The closest dimension of lot number 3 is kind of towards the end of the word house. I'm sorry, in the front of it, it's 37 feet. To the rear, it's about 60 feet from the back right corner of the house towards the wetlands. 60 plus feet. Close to 70 feet from the house to the wetlands. The same scenario with the lawn area is approximately 15 feet from the wetlands. Same silt fence, same split rail fence, same wetland notifications, and similar wetland enhancement plantings.
If I can ask, is there 2 different setbacks, for one for construction and one for a living or grass area, if you will? And that's the purpose of the fence?
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland Agent. So there's no setbacks in the Wetland Act. You're allowed to have an upland review area. So there's a 100-foot upland review area. And any activity within that 100 feet generally requires review and likely a permit from the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency. The distance that the fence is from the wetland is something the applicant provided. It doesn't relate to any standard.
I understand that. I guess my deeper concern is the water runoff that's going into these galleys and the purpose of building them. That at some point leaks around those galleys, goes over those galleys, goes into the wetlands. I mean, is there a pump or something that puts that up to the street? What happens there? Maybe we can't control who's going to live there, what they're going to put in their lawn, what chemicals they're going to put down, and what's going to happen to the wildlife and the plant life in that area 10, 20 years from now. And I do plan on being here, God willing.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent, I understand that's a concern. I mean, it's really a concern for any property that's developed near a wetland. I think in response to your question about the system overflowing, there's a yard drain. So if the system were to get to a point where it reached capacity, it's my understanding that it would overflow through that yard drain and then surface flow down towards the wetland. Is that correct, Mr. Wassner?
That's correct.
So I guess I do understand that, and it sounds all perfectly reasonable if the land wasn't developed. But what I don't see here is the land gets developed, the homeowner uses chem lawn, sprays that stuff down there, and on that 100-year storm, that stuff's leaking out and over. I'm sorry, but even an inch of that's not acceptable to me. Where it's flooding into an area, I happen to care about the wildlife and the plant life back here. It's why I moved here.
This is Commissioner Begemon. I hear your concerns, and a suggestion is get to know your neighbor and talk with them about wetland preservation. I think this application has put many things in this plan to protect wetlands that aren't necessary at all. A wooden split rail fence that actually separates the wetlands from somebody's, that's great. And then to mark it in addition, often somebody might put a marker that people can walk right by. So they're doing wetland enhancement when they don't have, there's not a requirement. So I think that as a neighbor to this proposal, I think some of your concerns, they are addressing some of your concerns. They're going
I believe they are. Some. Yeah. Not all. And if they were living there, I wonder if they'd have the same.
Well, I'm just trying to give you, this is Commissioner Begum, I'm just trying to give you a little confidence from my perspective.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
I understood why, and thank you. I will have no other questions at this time, I guess. Thank you so much for answering them, and I appreciate the commission.
Thank you, sir. I see Christine has her hand raised.
Hi, yes, I'm Christine Nintu. I live at 12 Well Sweep Road. My property is within 100 feet of the proposed development. My first question has to do with the landscaping and when exactly would this occur? Is it post-development, pre-development?
Mr. Pop?
Jamie, would you like me to answer that?
Sure, that'd be great.
So prior to construction, the erosion controls will be installed. That's the silt fence and tracking pads to prevent vehicles from tracking soil out onto the public street. The erosion control features run kind of parallel to the wetland, and that prevents sedimentation from during construction to run into the wetlands. Once the construction is complete and the area has been seeded as a lawn and established and erosion is no longer a threat, the silt fence will be removed, the split rail fence will be installed, the wetland notifications will be installed, and the enhancement plantings will be installed.
So the plantings will go in and then a builder comes along, the lot is sold, a builder comes in, builds the home, right?
No, that's not what it is. The plantings will be one of the last things that will be installed.
They'll go in. Okay. Is there a guarantee that the plantings that are proposed will be the ones that go in, or does the potential homeowner or the buyer have the opportunity to make changes as they see fit?
I'm going to answer, but Jamie can probably comment also. So this Branford Wetland Commission has a requirement that the plants survive for a certain period of time. I think, Jamie, you said 2 years. Is that?
5 years.
5 years. Okay. So the applicant will be responsible to ensure that these plants survive for 5 years. So at the end of 5 years, let's be optimistic and say they're going to make it. Certainly after the first year, if everybody walked away, that would be a greater risk that the plants don't make it. But they're required to post a bond, a dollar amount bond, to ensure that those are healthy.
And who is monitoring this? Is the town driving by every so often to make sure that whatever went in stays in? That the homeowner buyer doesn't make modifications?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So usually the process is that the property owner would hire somebody. It could be a soil scientist, it could be a landscape architect, to complete that monitoring. And I think you had also asked about switching out species. Sometimes you can't find a plant that's on the planting list, especially if you're planting late in the season. So there is the availability for the landscape architect to swap out the plant with a comparable appropriate plant. And usually in our conditions of approval, we require that they notify us about the swap prior to implementation so that we can comment if we have any concerns.
Okay, thank you. Next question, who maintains these split rail fences? Who's responsible for that? And exactly what the fence is made of?
Maintenance would be on the property owner. I don't recall if it specifies. I think it just says wooden split rail fence.
Because I know that, my neighbor across the street has them and they don't last long. Within a couple of years, they have to be replaced. So does that mean that the homeowner is then responsible for the upkeep of those split rail fences every so often?
If they need maintenance, theoretically, yes.
Yes.
I mean, like if there's one, we're not a blight committee, but
Well, the other thing too is they're in the woods. So I think part of it, some of them may not be seen, if you're standing at the end of Beechwood or on Gould Lane. And what's to stop the property owner from removing them?
That's a violation of the permit.
Compliance with their permit.
Wait, say that again, Jamie? I'm sorry.
Remaining in compliance with their permit. So theoretically, if they remove the fence, they're not compliant with the permit, and that could be an enforcement action.
Okay. So if somebody were walking through the woods, Brian's out in his yard, starts wandering through the woods, sees that his neighbor has taken down the split rail fences, he can then contact the town.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And can you also explain to me, in acres, how large is each lot, acreage wise?
Very.
Not in square feet.
Well, an acre is 43,560 square feet.
So lot number one is 32,000, correct?
Bear with
You
me
mean
a
the
second,
total-
Jane. I'll answer.
Are you talking? I'm talking about the size that can be developed, where the home and the lawn can go. That's the development.
Lot number one is 0.75 acres.
Okay.
Lot number two is similar, 0.75 acres. And lot number three is
Very tiny.
is 0.45 acres. That's what we proposed.
And is there a proposal for the maximum square footage of the homes within land wetlands? In terms of the size of the homes that can be built on each lot?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So basically, when a proposal comes forth to build one of the lots, if they're looking to build under permit that would be issued relative to this proposal, we'd be looking to make sure that they're basically maintaining the same size as this proposal. So if they say, you know what, this looks great, but I want my house to be twice as big,
Right.
they're going to have to come back. That will be a separate permit. They'll need to do new stormwater calculations. Obviously, if it's twice the size, this isn't going to be compliant with the regulations. So the envelope of what you see here and these impervious area numbers here are going to be essentially what we're looking at. I mean, they can reconfigure the house to a slightly different orientation, location on the site, but we'd be looking to make sure that those numbers are pretty much the same. And if not, looking for revised materials.
Okay. And do you know if there was ever, I know that there's a garage at the end of Beechwood. Was there ever any other structures that required septic or leaching fields on this property?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, this property used to be connected with other properties, so I don't know.
I was just curious if there are old septic tanks and leaching fields somewhere in here.
I'm not aware of
Amy,
anything that's
on
been
behalf of the
abandoned, but
applicant, we're not aware of any existing septic systems. You can look back through Google history. The house that was part of this property that fronts on Gould Lane is connected to the sewer system. All the houses that are on Beechwood were once part of this property. They're all connected to the public sewer system.
No, they have septic. Brian, don't you have septic? Or did you tie into sewers?
We're actually tied into sewers.
Oh, you are? Okay, because my mother was up on the original section of Beechwood, and they have septic, so, okay.
Your question is very valid though as to the old property, because in the last meeting they found farm equipment, or they mentioned it might have been a nursery where stuff could have been developed up there. And I'm sure the runoff, if the only road accessing it was on Gould, would have had to been sent down that way. Perhaps that's those pipes that Commissioner Bergman, I believe, saw. I don't know.
Right. And my last question has to do with giving those of us who could potentially see these new homes, if all of this is approved for the first time. I mean, our home has been here since 1963. We've been in the house 35 years. Never in a million years did I ever think we would have a home behind us. Is there the potential for putting up some beautiful, tall evergreens that border other properties to give everybody privacy? Or are we just going to put in things like maples and oaks that drop their leaves?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. I don't know that the Inland Wetland Commission has any jurisdiction over that. I don't know if it falls within any sort of planning and zoning authority.
I think
Commissioner Bassman, is the question that we would require the applicant to do that?
Okay.
Is that your question?
That is my question. Yes. Yes.
I think that would be, again, beyond our jurisdiction.
Okay. Okay. So I know in the last meeting, there was a discussion about the walk that took place on the property. Is there the opportunity for those of us who are within 100 feet of the proposed development to be able to go in, maybe with a member or two of the inland wetlands, and walk the property, so we have an understanding of where these homes would be sited?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. So the commission did have a site walk, and it's very atypical for the commission to have a second site walk. Usually I can't think of a time that that's happened.
I think our concern is this caught all of us blindsided us. And I would like to be able to see where the actual homes would sit. Yeah, we weren't invited to the walk, so nobody told us about it.
Was it not noticed, Jamie?
It was noticed. It was noticed before the public hearing, I believe. So, if you were not looking at in the wetland agendas, you would not have known.
No, we didn't know
there was a site walk.
Right.
So I would say there's not the opportunity to do so through the commission. You could contact the applicant and see if they'd be willing to show you around.
Okay.
But the commission.
Yeah, who is the applicant? Is the applicant somebody local?
Somebody we would know.
Someone who we would know?
I'll let the applicant team respond to that question.
The applicant's from Milford, Connecticut.
Oh, so they're not local. Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's the end of my questions. Thank you very much.
I see, this is Commissioner Bassman, I see other attendees, but nobody with their hand raised. Is-
Mr. Murray, is your hand still raised from before, or do you have another
No,
question?
I re-raised it. I had another question pop into mine over this, and
Before you
sure,
continue, I just want to see if anybody else has a question.
fair.
Hearing none, go ahead.
So during the last meeting, it was identified that there's a abandoned automobile in things back there. I imagine that leads to fluids from the vehicle being in the ground, and the removal of that stuff being an environmental concern. I'd assume that falls under your jurisdiction. How would that be handled by the applicant to not damage the areas?
The car will be removed. Simple as that. We're going to have a tow truck come in and take the car away, put it on a flatbed.
Is there any soil composition testing being done where that car has resided and rusted for years?
No.
I apologize, but that one is not a satisfactory answer to me. I hope somebody on the inland wetlands can chime in on that topic.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. My comment would be that I don't know how long that car has been there, but my observation, it's been there for quite some time, and removing it would be preferable to leaving it on site.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. It's along, if I remember on the sidewalk, wasn't that alongside the existing structure?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's really, there used to be a driveway there, so they would be taking it out the old driveway. That wasn't part of the wetlands, is it, Jamie? Where that structure is?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, that's located in the upland review area.
Yeah, okay. Right, thank you.
My concern, to be really specific, is yes, it resides against the garage that sits there, where it's probably been rotting for the last 20 years and spilling oil or whatever fluids are in that car. The driveway that runs there does not run where the applicant has put one since. It runs directly through the wetlands, through the water, and out to Gould Lane. So if that's how it's to be removed, you're going to be dragging oil-based soil. I'm assuming that stuff just doesn't disappear through the wetlands and causing damage during all that. So I'd ask that the applicant take proper precautions and have it reviewed by the proper engineers to have that removed effectively without damaging the property.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. I don't think it would be cost effective for the applicant to take it out through Gould Lane. I think he would take it out through Beechwood, because it's closer to Beechwood.
I agree with you, and I live right there. My driveway's there, which poses personal concerns to me and my property with the soil coming through. And the drainage, is it done on a rainy day? Is that coming down the steep driveway? A lot of concerns posed with that I'd like to make sure is addressed properly.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I think part of it's going to be assessing the ground condition when they remove it. I mean, if they remove it and they can see that there's spilled materials, then the appropriate thing to do would be to contact spill control and see what remediation measures need to occur.
Jamie, could we not put that in as a condition?
Please.
That they would take care in the removal of the vehicle and let the assessment occur at the moment, as opposed to trying to guess at this point what the conditions are and what we're going to do about it.
Thank you
else,
for
Mr.
that,
Murray?
Peter. And my concern is I actually grow vegetables and stuff organically down there that I like to consume.
No sense in growing them if you're not going to eat them.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to eat them if stuff's leaching into them. That's the purpose of growing them and the painstaking efforts I do to do that.
Right. So hopefully we can address that through the condition.
Appreciate it.
All right, I see no hands. Any other closing questions from the commission for the applicant? Hearing none, I think it's appropriate to close the public hearing on 25-0101, 1937 Gould Lane, proposed subdivision for 3 residential lots. Is that a votable item, Jamie?
I think that you can just close the public
Close
hearing.
it? Great. Consider it closed.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent, does the commission want to start deliberations this evening? Typically, the commission starts deliberations. I'll draft something for review, and the commission will then make a motion or, review that, make modifications, and then decide based off of that documentation and revisions. There's 35 days in which the commission has to make a decision. We have only one meeting in that window, so we would either need to have a special meeting or request a continuance of 1 day to our June 12th meeting if you wanted to resume deliberations at the next meeting, which is also pretty cool. One thing we can do is we can table this matter until after we've gone through the rest of the stuff on our agenda if you would like. But in the interest of making sure we're keeping this moving, just want to bring that to everyone's attention.
Yes, this is Commissioner Bassman, one man opinion. I'd like to see how we make it through the enforcement material, and then hopefully, if there's time, we can start deliberations. But we've got some enforcement action that may go quickly, and maybe at that point we can then resume 25-0101 in terms of deliberations.
Okay, so we're looking to table this item to pick back up after
Item 6
on our agenda.
So, enforcement cease and correct 240701, 15 and 7 Beacon Hill Road. The removal of vegetation and earth disturbance within the wetland and adjacent upland area. This is a continuation of a show cause hearing, to be continued to the May 22nd, 2025 hearing. So that one went quickly.
Good, because we don't have a quorum for it.
Right. Cease and correct 240902, 170, 182 Leeds Island Road, clearing and earth disturbance without a permit. Continuation of the show cause hearing. Jamie, can you bring us up to speed with Leeds Island? We haven't talked about this. I think at the last meeting we did not.
Correct. So this was continued to tonight's meeting with the hope that we'd have revised materials. I did talk with the property owner earlier this week. We were looking to get an on-site visit with the owner, myself, and the owner's soil scientist to kind of go over some of the outstanding things. So I know the property owner is trying to make some progress. I know we've given a lot of extensions of time. I think that it would be very helpful to have that on-site meeting. And so the property owners here, I think, requesting a continuation. The commission should discuss if you are giving a continuation, to what meeting you're giving that continuation to. And I think that it needs to be a pretty solid, we need that information at that meeting, or else we may have to start pursuing further action with the cease and correct order. So I guess I'd hand it over to the property owner to clarify if that is in fact your request.
Yes, Commissioner Bassman, just clarity. Jamie, was the only item kind of standing in the way of progress the on-site meeting?
So basically what the commission was looking for was some clarification on some of the information that was provided and essentially a written narrative explanation of the farming uses on site and how they relate to the crushed stone and any other proposed site improvements. So I think meeting on site and kind of visually talking about these things on site might be helpful. And also, since there's a new soil scientist, kind of getting us all on the same page will be helpful to move the project forward. So again, I'd hand it over to the property owner to elaborate on his request if he has anything to add, and also to update if he's heard from his soil scientist in regards to that on-site meeting.
Good evening, Rick and Ofrio. To expand on that a little bit, I have made some progress. What I'm trying to do, which I haven't had the opportunity, I did reach out to a surveyor even to try to get that visual assessment that you guys were asking for at that last meeting that I attended. I understand what you guys are looking for, a more visual map and delineation of, even though I provided, what I thought was okay in the last meeting. I've since ordered a package of environmental data reports. Jamie actually also just forwarded me this week some updated aerials, which are also very helpful. So I'm at the last point of putting together the detail into what I believe you guys are really looking for. And also, I have reached out and copied Jamie on emails to the soil scientist, which I have not heard back from as of yet. I'm not sure if he's on vacation or what, but I have a couple calls into him. So that's the big thing, is that we'd like to get that taken care of, set up a time with Jamie and the soil scientist, relatively soon, so she could have a good understanding of what's going on. And I've obviously added detail to, and that's what I'm working on now, is adding detail to this drawing, so doesn't just look like a simple stick drawing layout, even though it was based off a CAD, site assessment originally. I'm trying to get that as clear as possible for you. So I'm respectfully requesting, I would say the next meeting, that would give me approximately 5 days to get the information in. If that's a busy meeting for you and you wanted to expand it to the next one, that would give me about 2 weeks of business weeks of days to get the information in the week before, as you guys generally do. But it's up to you as far as that goes. But I think that would bring us up to par for what you guys are looking for. Definitely meet with Jamie on site there beforehand as well, so everybody could have the information they need to move forward.
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland Agent. I think given that we haven't heard back from the soil scientist yet, that maybe continuing it to the first meeting in June, just June 12th, might make sense.
Yep.
Because I don't want to put us in a boat where we don't get out there until the end of next week. That doesn't give you time really to get the information submitted based on that conversation. I would say if we do continue it to the June 12th meeting, I'd recommend a deadline of May 28th for submitting materials, because I am out the first week in June. So that will give me an opportunity to let you know if I have any comments or outstanding concerns with enough time for you to submit.
May 28th we want to make sure we have the meeting before that and all the documents submitted, right?
Correct.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Begeman. In listening to the meeting, Jamie, you outlined, and Peter, a bunch of things that are needed before it's complete, like the narrative and things like that. Is there a checklist that Mr. Onofrio can look at of all those things?
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland Agent. So I did send a somewhat, I think, a pretty elaborate letter and follow up to our last meeting where this was discussed. That kind of outlines those things. So I can just screen share that real quick. So we've got the site plan, the concern about the extent of stone relative to the wetland limit. And I think that's one thing where meeting on site should help clarify that really easily. Kind of just in general, the site plan stuff, and in general, the narrative stuff, and then kind of just general topics overall. So I think that there's a pretty good outline of what it is that the commission is expecting. And of course, if there's any questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Absolutely. I'm going to get that to you as early as possible so we can make any changes beforehand so we don't have to waste anyone's time.
So regarding this, Commissioner Basserman, CC Correct 240902, the continuation of the show cause hearing has now been continued until the June 12th, 2025 regular meeting of the commission.
With materials to be submitted by May 28th.
By May 28th.
Thank you very much.
Next up, CC Correct 2501-329 East Main Street, failure of erosion and sedimentation control and associated with site development, show cause hearing. Jamie, take it away.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So I went out to the site Monday during that rain that we were receiving. I observed that there was sediment-laden water getting into the water course, so I contacted the property owner. It was the end of the day. I told him I'd be issuing the cease and correct order. They got on it right away, getting the team out there to address my concerns. So a lot of improvements have been made on site. I mean, the problems weren't significant in size, but they were impactful. So essentially the main concern I had was that the curb line inlet on the catch basins was not adequately protected, so water was overtopping the silt sacks, going through that curb line inlet and discharging out through the system out into the wetland. So since then, they have placed sandbags in front of that rear inlet, and they've also addressed some other concerns about silt fence on site. I can share some photos of I'll just share the photos from the cease and correct order real quick. Is everyone seeing this?
Mm-hmm.
So let me backtrack. So my concern here is essentially the curb line was to remain and essentially keep the stormwater from the site during development going through the stormwater system. And here it was overtopping the curb and going over this disturbed slope, and the wetlands right on the other side of the silt fence. The disturbed slope is from gas utility work that was done. They hadn't reached out to me prior to doing the work. I did reach out to the utility company, and they will be seeding this area on Monday, is my understanding. And they'll be spreading straw as well. And as you'll see in later photos, the property owner has installed a silt fence at the lower limits of that area to keep it protected in the meantime. So this is a picture of the wetland through the perimeter silt fence. As you can see, water discharging to the wetland has some sediment in it. Here's a picture of one of the catch basins of concern. They had put hay bales down to try and block that rear inlet, but given that they're not like staked in place, the water was still flowing under and through. And then this is the rear outlet. And again, another one of the catch basins. So since then, I didn't make it back out to the site today. However, I did receive some photos from the crew out there. And so they placed sandbags to try and help more effectively block that rear inlet to prevent unfiltered stormwater discharging to the wetland. There is still some of the water gets treated through the on-site vortex unit, but that only handles a certain amount of the water. The project engineer, I believe, is on the call, so he can speak more to that and clarify or correct anything that I've said, and provide any additional information that he thinks would be helpful for the commission. But essentially, I told them to stop work until the erosion controls were fixed, and I said that the commission might want to have a wetland scientist investigate the wetland area to make sure that there's no lasting impacts that need to be corrected from the sediment material that did end up in the wetland area. So that's the quick version of it. Any questions for me before we see what the property owner and his team have?
This is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, I guess we're forecast to have considerable rain. Do we think the measures that are in place are going to be effective, or are we, given the amount of rain that's likely to appear, still of large concern here?
So I certainly think there's a huge improvement out there. I've not seen sandbags specifically for the rear inlet protection. It does call for sandbags in the erosion control guidelines, erosion control guidelines. I think that it kind of got morphed here because I had mentioned the concern that if the sandbags are just diverting the water away from the curb line, it doesn't really provide the protection because essentially these catch basins are located so low on the site that the water ponds on top of the catch basin. So I was afraid that the water would just fill up the silt sack and then flow over and back into. So I would kind of also like to get the project engineer's response to that. And I also did follow up via email this afternoon with the contractor and the owner, and I suggested that they should have somebody go out there on Friday during the rain to make sure that they are working as intended and that there's no micro adjustments that need to be made.
And as Commissioner Wasserman, we have who with us this evening for this item?
Hi, this is John Schmitz with BL 355 Research Parkway, representing the applicant. We're the design engineer for the original project. I don't have much to add to what Ms. Frederick said. She very accurately described, I think, what's going on. We met with staff in the field, I believe it was yesterday morning, to review what was going on, some of the impacts. As was described, the hay bales that were put in place to try to block the curb inlet, I don't think were effectively working, and obviously led to water short circuiting the silt traps, silt sacks, and water was running into the inlet. So we had reviewed the erosion control manual and recommended that we provide sandbags to block the inlet. Therefore, water would then be forced into the silt sack for better filtration. Obviously, again, significant amount of water or rainfall expected tomorrow. We're going to be keeping an eye on things. Erosion control measures in general are only designed for a 2-year storm for only a couple inches of rain. Tomorrow is probably going to be a 10-year storm. So I don't know that there's basically what we could do is keep an eye on it and supplement things as things progress. Hopefully, as the rain comes down, it's spread out over a longer period of time and doesn't come all at once. But where we stand right now, I think we're definitely aware of the situation and keeping an eye on it and be monitoring it as we go forward. I know Jane Frederick did flip by one of the pictures of the gas work. The owner did put down a couple 100 feet of silt fence to take care of that area that was outside of our original limits of disturbance and was not done. Yeah, there we go. Their work was not done by the owner. It was done by the gas company, and there was no coordination on our part. The gas company came out and did the work and left it in disrepair. It was brought to our attention, silt fence was installed, and my understanding is that the next couple of days, seeding and straw will go down in that area to help it reestablish. But again, regarding the rest of the site, we're currently looking at it, taking it very seriously, and trying to address stormwater runoff moving forward.
It's Commissioner Bassman, just a curiosity question. Seeding when we have this much rain, is that effective?
I think that's part of why they're waiting until Monday.
Gotcha.
They originally said they could get out there on Thursday, and I said not to push you off, but we are expecting a lot of rain on Friday.
Okay.
So they decided to do Monday. So
This is Commissioner Begemon. Question, that big stockpile of earth, is that where the runoff is coming from? The dirt, the silt?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I don't think so. I think it's just the stormwater traversing over the site in general.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, John Schmitz again. And one of the items that we did install, in addition to the inlets, we did install additional silt fence around the. There you go. Did provide additional silt fence around the stockpiles to help prevent any, to help try to prevent any runoff or any runoff that comes off the silt fence or off the piles would get filtered through the silt fence.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I will reverse that and say that these probably did contribute to the issue in this location. I don't think that they were contributing over in this area. I think that was just running over the over the surface in general. And then over here, I think it was because it was running over the disturbed utility work, because the silt fence wasn't installed at the time, but it is now. So that should really help address things. And I think they also they put some crushed stone. I don't think I have a picture of it at the top to kind of help keep the water dispersed a bit more going over that slope, if it does in fact go that way instead of through the storm system. So kind of on a side note, at this point, I'm not necessarily planning on doing any enforcement action with the utility company, assuming that they get out there and they seed, unless the commission thinks I should take a different course of action. But if they're getting out there and seeding on Monday and spreading straw, that in combination with the measures that the property owner has put up, I think probably resolves the matter. It's my understanding that there was some sort of damage that they needed to fix. So, well, it's certainly not ideal.
This Commissioner Bassman, I guess, Jerry, I guess let's see how effective this is in, I guess the question is the sedimentation that is in the wetland, nothing at this point, but if it continues, then you would raise the issue about trying to assess, the level of sedimentation that made it to the wetland. I'm okay, I guess, with letting things stand because there is a plan. Let's see how the plan works before we tie that one up.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. With the construction that's transpired, how many catch basins were removed or not in operation at this time? Because on the parking lot area, I mean, you have that one catch basin that you showed a picture of at the rear of the property, but there are other catch basins on that property before they started construction over there.
So I did not have that information in the Dropbox. However, John Smits did provide a markup because I did have that very question in regards to whether certain structures needed inlet protection. And this was kind of the markup that we received as to what's online still. So this location was one of the outlets that had problems, and it was related to these two catch basins. And then this is the other outlet that had an issue. This outlet over here, which I believe has new system connected to it, was running clear.
This is Commissioner Bergman. Can I go back to the gas company issue? Wouldn't it make sense for the commission to write something to the gas company about what they did, even if it isn't a cease and correct? Because
notice of violation.
Yeah, and
absolutely,
if there needs to be remediation in the wetlands because of the silt, whose responsibility is that? Would it be SCG, or if I don't know, the gas company, or would it be the developer?
It does become a good question. I can say that the siltation at the base of that slope was less than what I was seeing at the two outlets. That being said, anything that got in from that slope, it flows in that direction. So that doesn't necessarily mean much. So at this point, obviously the property owner should keep an eye on things. I'll probably be popping out there tomorrow to see how things are holding up. If things hold up well through the rain that we get, is the commission okay with them resuming activity on site? Does the commission want to make a determination this evening, or do you want to keep things open and see what happens? And I guess the question is, do you feel that you can make a decision as to whether you think an assessment of impact to the wetlands is needed this evening? Or do you want to wait and see what things look like at the time of the next meeting to see if that's warranted? And in the interim, we could have the weekly sediment and erosion control reports provide an update of what those impacted areas look like in the wetland area.
The fact that there is some activity that is going to attenuate what we think is an improper situation, the fact that you're going to take a look, you say, Friday to see how things develop when it's supposed to be raining, etc. I for one, am okay with thinking about the sedimentation and siltation after we've seen some natural events, as opposed to deciding we need to do that now. But I'm open to other discussion. But I think Commissioner Begerman's suggestion about a letter going to the gas company is prudent.
Noted. Do you think the gas company needs to come to one of the meetings or be noticed? And that's it.
Commissioner Vestman, say that again, JB. Come to the next meeting. Is that what you're saying?
Come to a meeting, most likely the next meeting.
Yeah.
Would you like the notice of violation to direct them to have somebody attend?
I think that's a good suggestion, especially since, as I understand it from Mr. Schmitz, when they got there, it looked like the erosion control was not installed correctly. So, yeah.
They hadn't installed anything.
Who put the other erosion control in?
The property owner did.
Property. Okay. All right.
Okay, so I will direct them to attend the next meeting, which I think would be the appropriate meeting to continue this to. because at that point we'll have at least been through one storm event, and I think it will be 2 weeks later to see what the wetland area looks like, and the commission can make decisions from there. The one concern I have is, in regards to if the commission continues the show cause hearing, then the order is not upheld, but it remains in effect based on its terms. So I did have a stop work language in there. So I just want the commission to address whether you're expecting them to stop work through that next meeting, or if there's some leeway. And I think I built some leeway in here. So I said, cease any further site work until sediment and erosion controls are installed in compliance with the approved plan, with any improvements needed to ensure sediment-laden stormwater is not being discharged to the wetland, including but not necessarily limited to proper inlet protection appropriate for the type of catch basin, diversion of flow through perimeter silt fence to be captured by the remaining online stormwater system or on-site stormwater system, as was discussed during the pre-construction meeting, or implementation of control measures to address disturbed condition on slope until further addressed by the CAS company, which they addressed, and silt fence around stockpiles, which they've addressed on the low side of the stockpiles, which generally is something that I accept, because they're accessing the stockpile, and if it's on the upslope side, it's going to fall back into the pile. So if I'm satisfied with that curb line protection, are you good with them resuming site work? Is that a fair way to interpret the language of this order?
It looks like this Commissioner Bassford, it looks like the areas that you asked them to address, they have addressed, and I guess unless things fail, over the weekend, I guess could resume construction.
This is Commissioner Begeman, and if the new construction entails creating new stockpiles and everything, I'm assuming that silt fences and all would be.
If there were new stockpiles, yes. I don't think that they're going to have additional stockpiles, though.
Commissioner Begeman, it's one thing to say, yeah, go ahead and resume, but we don't want them to resume and do something that doesn't have the proper erosion control measures in place.
No.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Ormrod. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, if they're going to be doing like high risk activities that could only exacerbate the issue, then I don't know. I think we need to see how these improvements affect, or if they're effective or not in this next storm.
I guess my question is, are you good with me making that judgment call after the storm event? Or do you feel the commission needs to make that assessment? And I mean, I could make a judgment call and the commission could always reverse it again when it comes back to the commission, but I don't necessarily want to hold them up for 2 weeks, because having an inactive site for 2 weeks isn't helpful from an erosion standpoint either.
So Commissioner Begeman, your question is whether it can be agent approval, so to speak, to resume work with your judgment. Right. Is that I'm fine with that.
Okay. And of course, the order would still be in place until the commission makes a determination, and you guys could always overrule me on that if I bring it back and there's something you don't like. And of course, this is all contingent upon it holding.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Orman. I'm okay with that. I think at some point though we're going to want, a wetland scientist to assess the area. So it seems like we had some turbid water, but I don't know if we know the extent of the impacts or anything like that at this time. So I guess that's my only comment.
I guess the good news is we'll know soon.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, would you look to have somebody assess the wetland if possible prior to the next meeting? Or do you want to hold off and give them?
I think it's kind of weather dependent. Yeah, I guess, but it would be nice to get an idea as soon as we can. Yeah, I don't know if I have a timeline though.
So in follow up to that, does the commission want this to come back at the next meeting? Regardless of what, okay, so.
Yeah.
In the interest of not having this on the agenda 3 meetings in a row, potentially. If things are generally looking okay, is the commission okay with continuing it to the June 12th meeting so that that assessment can be provided? And if there are outstanding concerns, that it would be brought back at the May 22nd meeting?
Yes, Commissioner Bergman.
That's good.
Yes.
Yeah,
That works. That works.
And does that make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
On your side, Smits?
Yeah, so my understanding is that obviously we're not going to be working tomorrow. We're not working anyway because of the work order, but following the storm, you would come out and make another assessment. Staff would have the authority to allow work to continue. In the meantime, we would have a soil scientist come out and provide an assessment of the wetlands and the impacts that happen from siltation. And then we would come back and report to the commission in the future. But in the meantime, under your authorization, we'd be allowed to continue if you see fit. Correct?
Yeah, that's what I was seeing.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I think that's the best, my opinion, I think it's the best way to move forward. We made the corrections that were requested. I think they'll have some impact. The pavement that's was out there was milled. So we're basically working off of a gravel earth, base now. So when things were impervious, there was a lot more runoff from the impervious surfaces. But since the pavement's been milled off, there's obviously less impervious, so less runoff at this point. So I think we're okay with proceeding in that matter.
This is Commissioner Bergman. Just clarification. You said a soil scientist to look at the wetland. Jamie, is that soil scientist or
soil scientist is a general term, and it means wetland scientist. There are soil scientists that do other types of analysis, but yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Last in item 6, cease and correct 250502, 175 Cherry Hill Road, Hosley Road, 167 Cherry Hill Road, failure of erosion and sedimentation control shall cause hearing. Let's see, Jamie, do you have additional information, or is this something that is been here a while, right?
So this is a new order. There is an old order that was upheld. I do not have that on the agenda, or I have the letter in the record for this file, but since that order was upheld, this is a separate instance, and but it's a very similar issue that has occurred, and we are, of course, in the rainy season, but also the growing season, so it's the fine balance of when to seed, but we do want to get some vegetation out there, get things stabilized, and kind of look at general improvements that could be made to help reduce the overall erosion potential out there. So I'm going to start off with some photos, and I believe we do have some people here, but I'll give a quick overview, and then we'll let everyone have a chance to speak. I did send the order out
Excuse me,
to,
Jamie, this is Commissioner Brassman. How is this one different than the one that was upheld?
so it's different in the fact that the problem had stopped and it's resumed, and it's also different in the sense that there's kind of more players involved now in the site development. So essentially, there's already been a decision and a show cause hearing on the last order, right? So we have to, since this is happening again, we need to give the parties a chance to show cause why the order shouldn't remain in effect, or, or to support,
Gotcha.
anything as far as considerations for the commission in reviewing and processing this issue. So I'm actually going to start off with the last page of the cease and correct order. All right, is everyone seeing a aerial image?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so we've got the subdivision site kind of at the top of the image, and this is the end of Cherry Hill Road. So if you go south on Cherry Hill Road, there's a water course that runs under the road through a culvert. And there was sediment getting into that water course via running down Cherry Hill Road. So this is one side of Cherry Hill Road where you can see, and this is the water course right here. And you can see it running down the road. And then this is kind of a wetland complex, I believe, that's located off over here. That also has some sediment delivery to it. And then this is the other side of the road, running down into the water course on the other side of the culvert. So there's definitely sediment getting down there. There have been some corrections made on site since then, so I'm optimistic that we at least won't start off. We definitely won't at least start off the storm on Friday with this condition. So again, this is the transition from the existing road to the new road. This catch basin was full because of the amount of sediment that had come down the road, so it was allowing a lot of the water to flow down the road, and also because it was entering the road with siltation, it was transporting that down the roadway. So I'm going the wrong way. So again, these measures, you can see that there's sediment built up, and you can see the basin wasn't really flowing too much. I think that was mostly just surface flow coming from down the hill. This is going on to Regional Water Authority property. This area didn't appear to have been mucked out prior to this storm event. And then this upper area appeared it had been mucked out, but the contact of the hay bales was lost, so it wasn't really providing any function. And you can see that there's a concentration of flow coming down off the slope that's causing this issue. And then over here, this is contributing a lot to the roadway. These are in the corner of lot 8, and they weren't enough to hold the water, filter the water, if you will. And then this is just kind of showing that the water does traverse across the road. So it doesn't really matter what side of the road it's coming down in the development. It could end up on both sides by the time it gets down to the water course. So I will hop over real quick and show you some of the site pictures from today. So this is that catch basin that was overflowing. It's been emptied. The silt sack's been emptied and the area cleaned out. You can see that behind these hay bales has also been cleaned out. They were still you can't see it in this picture, but I think you can see it in later ones. This has been cleaned out to restore capacity. We had talked about getting this portion restapled, and they were in the process of placing some of these hay bales, and we had talked about extending these hay bales to make sure that the stormwater doesn't pop out somewhere else over here. The silt fence up here has been repaired. And so I met with Bruno and John on site today. We went over some of the repairs that have been made. We've gone over some additional areas that should be addressed. We talked about kind of getting clarification as to who's responsible for what on site and what kind of the immediate plan is for different portions of the site. So let me just finish the pictures real quick. I don't think there's, oh, and then this is what the water course looked like today. Yeah, that's going down to the water course. So let's see. Weekly, roughly, I'm getting these reports from Giuliano Associates. I have suggested that we meet on site, I believe next Monday or sometime next week with main players involved, and go over some of the improvements that could be made out there. So there's a lot of sediment load bearing on this rear silt fence behind lots 5 and 6, and then also coming down that steep slope where you saw the erosion coming down is right along in here. So I'm going to just show you real quick. We have some recent aerial image read through near map. So this is from April of this year, and you can see the water definitely has a preferred path. And so we talked about putting some sort of check dams through here. And we also talked about getting, as clearly in the entire development portion of the site has been disturbed, getting interior lot specific controls installed and or getting those lots seeded if they're not going to be developed, to reduce the erosion potential and help add some capacity for capturing sediment and interrupting the sediment flow across the site. So we also talked about, like, over here, there should be a silt fence between lot 9 and 8, or sorry, 10 and 9. Making sure that the stockpiles are surrounded by erosion control measures and or covered with the tarps they have on site, which are very impressive when they're in use. And then just kind of identifying areas of the site that could be seeded in general, not necessarily specifically the lots, but along the shoulder of the road, to help reduce erosion potential. So there's definitely a lot of work to do, I think, to get things in a more manageable condition, especially going through the rest of the spring season. My main concerns being that there's no sediment in the water that's entering the road, because that's all going down the road to the wetland and potentially having impacts. So this is not the first time, obviously, based on the fact it's the second cease and correct order that this has happened. The first time, I think the commission passed on having a wetland assessment, an impact assessment done. I don't know if you want to do that again. I have issued the cease and correct order to the original subdivision permit holder, and also the developer or the builder for some of the lots, and Regional Water Authority, because the water course and wetland area that's being impacted is Regional Water Authority property. So they have to obviously be involved to authorize any activity on their site. And the reason why I included the builder is because there's kind of some mixed responsibility out there with erosion controls. And a lot of these lots are being sold off as they're being developed. So It's a unique situation. I haven't seen this before. It's not to say it doesn't happen or can't happen. But it kind of can make things a bit messy as far as making sure everyone's talking and making sure everything works together. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's really important that, given everything's disturbed, that we get those, essentially come up with interior erosion control plans for each individual lot, given that most of the lots are independently owned at this point. So it protects the individual property owner for those lots, and it should help provide better erosion control potential, erosion control management overall for the site. And then something we haven't talked about, and kind of a down the road conversation, is it's also going to be important getting that basin online in the way that it's meant to. Not online, because that's not going to happen until the road is got its final course of pavement, but getting it ready to go online is going to be important. So I think I've talked enough. Do you want to start from the right and go to the left with the parties for the order and see what they have to say? If they want to add anything.
Before we do that, you were out there, this is Christian Bassman, you were out there today, Jamie?
I was.
Is there a delineated list of actions that were an issue and have been resolved, and a much larger list of items that still need to be addressed, that is reflective of today's visit, or is that still something that has to be produced?
I have not made a list. So before I sent the cease and correct order, I did kind of provide a brief list of things to address, and I tried to focus on things that could potentially be addressed prior to the next storm event, because those are obviously the things I wanted them to focus on first. One thing we didn't talk about on site and is whether, so on some site plans, like I've seen on single family houses where they have, wattle or hay bales or some sort of measure across the driveway, but usually that's like an unpaved feature and it's just a single family house. It's not like a whole road. So I don't want to say go ahead and put erosion controls across the road and then have a problem with stormwater. But one of the questions I have is whether it would be appropriate to do something like that in case they end up with more sediment in the roadway. It would give them some more capacity to store that before it starts traveling down the road. So they did empty the silt sack, which is the second one. Make sure sediment middlewires. So in regards to the third one, they did muck out the hay bales on the west side of the road, which would help address one point. And then they also reestablished some of the silt fence. I think they put up a new section of silt fence at the bottom of the slope at the turn in the road, which also should help with that. Remove sediment buildup behind hay bales and roadway. They did that. They mucked out a majority of the areas. There's one area I mentioned if they could get out there and do today, they should. And if not, they should consider putting an interior control above it to help reduce the load on the already loaded area. And that's where like that central gully that's forming is flowing down.
Is construction still taking place on site?
I'll defer to the property owner on that. So I think my order was to stop site work, which I would count as ground disturbance. I don't know that I would necessarily count it as like interior work on the houses or anything like that. And
okay.
Yeah, so that's my interpretation. And of course, any site work that is an erosion control measure should be completed. It's just that no other site work, such as excavating a new foundation, should occur until these things have been resolved. That's my interpretation of the language.
So we want to hear from, what's the order you want to hear?
Let's start with Bruno.
Hi,
And,
this is Bruno Chacon. I do want to say, Jamie, thank you for presenting all that, and you kind of covered everything that we went over today. In defense to me as the developer, every rainstorm we've had, we've been on site, cleaning it up, putting hay bales, doing, fixing the problem areas, and it's been successful. Since January, we've been having obviously some rain, and it's been working good of the implementations that we've been doing. Recently, I had cleaned out the town's basin over there because that was pretty clogged, and that was causing a lot of problems going down Cherry Hill from the first cease and correct order. Jamie, I don't know if did you ever present that to the commission of how bad that was, the condition of that basin?
That has not been brought to the commission. No.
Okay. So when the first cease and correct order, all these problems that we were having was because the water was not draining in the town's basin. I brought it to the town multiple times, Public Works to clean it. Since last year, they refused to do it, so I hired Sanitrol to clean it out. This basin right here. When it was cleaned, everything was working fine, and we've had rain before this rainstorm, and everything's been good. This water that's on the road, Jamie and I were both out there at different separate times, is coming from two lots that are under construction. Lot 1 and Lot 8. And there had no erosion controls at all on Lot 1. So I was there the other day, and I just temporarily installed some hay bales on the corner, and now they've installed some silt fence, which should solve this problem. Lot 8, the same thing. There was a very short amount of silt fence that was on the corner that was undermining. The water was just going around it. As far as Lot 7, the water was always running down that pathway and making its way down near the wattles. So what I'm trying to say is we've solved the problems with adding hundreds of hay bales everywhere, silt fence everywhere. There is eroding on Lot 6 on the slopes. There is, but if you see the amount of erosion measures that we've made there, it's working when we do it.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Mr. President. Jamie, are these pictures within the last 2 weeks, or are these old pictures I'm looking at?
These were Monday.
So
This is
wait, sorry.
I'm trying to jump from things are working to this picture, and I'm not connected.
Excuse me, Mr. Bassman, it's Bruno Chacon. This last rainstorm that we had last week, this erosion here from the road, all that sediment you're seeing on Cherry Hill Road is from two specific lots. It's Lot 1 and Lot 8. I was up there. I took pictures. You could clearly see it. Now that they've implemented those fixes on the corner of Lot 1, they've installed an entire silt fence, which should solve the problem with silt getting on the road. We've resolved this silt problem when I cleaned that basin out months ago. It's rained after that, and we've had no problems. So this problem that's happening here is from this past storm, from the major lots that are the two main lots that are getting developed right now is Lot 1 and Lot 8. And you could clearly see it coming off of there. Now, is there more water coming off of where the slope is? Yes, there is. But we're going onto water property. We've addressed that this past couple days. We've added more silt fence and more hay bales. And that's it.
So Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I'll just follow up and say, I have been going out here with varying regularity, but I'd say during the winter months, there's times where it's running clear, and there's times where there's been a little bit of sediment. This has been an outlier occasion, which is why I've issued the order And of course, knowing that we're getting another large storm event, I wanted to make sure that improvements were made in a timely manner, so that we don't end up with an even larger impact. And I think the problem is, my main concern is it can be good for a while, and then I think the maintenance kind of gets slack. And then as soon as the maintenance isn't done, there's not enough capacity and we're back in this position. So that's why those check dams, internal erosion controls, getting vegetation established are really important, because it's going to greatly reduce the amount of maintenance. Not to say that there won't be maintenance, but it will reduce the amount of maintenance, and it will reduce the potential impacts if there is a lapse in maintenance. So I think that having those additional controls installed are really important. And I think that's all I have to say.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. Bruno, my question, you said lot 1, and what was the other lot number?
Lot 8.
Lot 8. Okay. Now, do you own those 2 lots?
Well, that was the next. I'm glad you said that. That was the next thing I was going to bring up. That Jamie and I had this discussion. No, right now, currently, lot 1, 2, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 6 are not owned by me. And this was another discussion. Who is responsible? I've taken care of the entire site as an erosion controlled measures. Now, if these owners, like lot 6 and lot 9, are not ready to build, they're using the same builder. So it's the same builder for about 7 of the houses right now is the same builder. Who's responsible for the actual site controls on each individual lot if I'm not the owner?
Well, my question, yeah, that is my question. Why aren't the other owners being violated?
I think that that's something that needs to be a conversation to some extent with the property owners. And I mean, because like you've said, lot 9 sounds like doesn't plan on building for a while. They haven't created the bare condition and the stockpile that's on that lot, though. So the inland wetland regulations don't just hold property owners responsible, they also hold the person that created the condition responsible. So I see the concern, and I'm not trying to undermine it or say that it's not important, but I think that conversation needs to be had and it needs to be clear. Because if lot 9 is responsible for the erosion controls on lot 9, they need to know that. Because I'm sure they're not driving by the site or even thinking about it, because they're not planning to build right now. So I think that needs to be made clear amongst the parties that are counting on those erosion controls to work, right? Because right now there's no silt fence down slope of lot 10. So lot 10 is really in trouble if they're not counting on the erosion controls on lot 9. So it becomes complicated.
Jamie, okay, Commissioner Goklowski again. My question is I don't know Bruno's last name, but is Bruno in compliance with the properties that he currently owns in that area?
I'm not sure what you mean. Like the lots he still owns?
Right, the lots that he still owns. Are there any issues that would
Well,
raise?
I mean, he still owns the roadway, and it's getting into the road.
Okay.
And he still owns lot 5, I believe. He still owns lot 7, which is where the water was entering. I understand it was coming from lot 8. And again, this is how everything's so interconnected. And the erosion control plan from when the subdivision got approved was a connected erosion control plan. When we were looking at the individual lots being developed, I think it was the second or third one that came in, it came to my attention that the lots were getting sold at the time of development. I said, well, wait a minute, we need an erosion control plan then for this lot that is for this lot specifically. And that's part of why I'm saying we should have internal controls for each lot because they're all owned independently. So then if you want to point the finger at somebody, you know who to point it at.
Okay, Commissioner Goklowski again. So Bruno owns the road that all these properties are attached to. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So in essence, if those properties, if lot 8 is causing sediment to go into the road, because he owns the road, he should be going after that particular property owner to put the erosion controls in. It's not our responsibility. His responsibility is to the commission to maintain that roadway so there's no sediment control. Is that in fact true?
I think it's in his interest, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Again, the state statutes allow the commission to hold property owners and violators responsible. So, like I said, I issued the cease and correct order to Bruno and to the developer of some of the lots in question, and then also to Regional Water Authority, because Regional Water Authority owns the property that was impacted. I also CC'd all of the property owners I had contact information for the individual lots so that they could be made aware, because if should there be further problems and I have to reach out to a specific property owner, I didn't want this to be completely out of the blue for them.
But that raises the questions, Commissioner Bassman. Why aren't the property owners on the cease and correct as well?
In my mind, it's because they didn't cause the problem. So when we have a problem and we know who caused the problem, so generally speaking, a site, an individual lot, single family house, not part of a subdivision, is being constructed, and the contractor doesn't comply with the site plan, I don't usually go over after the property owner because their contractor isn't being responsive. I go to the contractor and say, you're not being compliant with this, you need to fix it. I'll CC the property owner because they need to be aware of it, but I mean, they're responsible because they need to hire somebody that's going to responsibly develop the property, but it's the contractor ultimately that is responsible for bringing the site into compliance, unless the property owner, of course, decides they want to go a different direction. But
Jamie, may I, Bruno Chacon, may I ask, has John Giannotti or Waterside Construction, have they brought to present an erosion control plan for each individual house that they're bringing to you? Because I don't see any of those plans.
so we have that for lot 8, lot 9, lot 10, and lot 11. And that's why I said the interior control between lot 10 and 9 should be up, because it was called for on the plan.
Okay.
Do you know if that got installed today?
When we left, John said he was getting on it right away. I didn't go back there. It got late.
I know he said he was going to, but
Yeah. Usually he does, so get it done.
Inland Wetland Associate Katie Blanchett. Jamie, the other day when you asked me to pull the deeds for the lots that were sold,
let's not do that right now. I think I know where you're going.
okay.
We have, this is Commissioner Bestman. Jamie, we haven't run across this previously at all. Usually this is a subdivision. You're saying that because these are individual lots, this is a horse of a different color.
It's a unique situation. And I think getting those interior controls installed is important. And it is unique because even if you get those interior controls installed, you don't just stop grade in a subdivision, you don't just stop grading a lot at the lot line, right? You have to tie it into the grade with the neighboring lot. Yeah. So the majority of the way I've seen subdivisions developed in town is the developer retains the property, they build the lot, or they build the house, grade the lot, and then once it's done or largely done, they'll sell the property, convey the property to the new property owner. And at that point, at least all the rough grading, drainage, and all that stuff is done. So it's still the same person, whether you're at lot 1 or lot 2 that you're talking with. So if you have 2 neighboring lots that are being developed by 2 different people, it becomes a little bit more complicated. Not necessarily if it's flat and, one side's not draining onto the other per se, but this is on a hill. So like, of course, the problem areas are going to be at the bottom of the hill.
Mhm.
And that's not to say the lots at the top aren't impacting the lots at the bottom. So it's interconnected in a way that I don't think a majority of the time you can limit it to one lot. And if you have those interior controls installed, it's easier to see where that lot line is, how one lot may be impacting another lot. And then you can target more on a lot by lot basis. Okay, I need to follow up with lot 2 or lot 4 or lot 5 or lot 6, or 5 and 6. And it also should help reduce the loads on each of the measures, which gives you more time to go back and provide that capacity, do that maintenance, because we get a lot of back-to-back rainstorms and this site gets super soggy. You can't get in there and do repairs when it's really wet.
So how do we get your internal lot controls in place?
Well, I think that's a conversation to be had in part, in the sense that I need to know who I'm talking with, or if, Bruno's going to kind of take point on that, as far as contacting people, because ultimately I understand that, Bruno, you don't own the property still, but there needs to be communication, because everything is ultimately draining to your road. And you need to make sure that ultimately that overall subdivision compliance is being maintained. So I'm more than happy to have conversations with individual lot owners, if that's the appropriate person to contact. But I also know that if somebody's having a lot built, they probably are expecting the contractor to maintain it. And if they're not building the lot, they're probably expecting that there's nothing they have to do with the lot. So I don't know how we move forward with that, but I think that's something that needs to be discussed early next week, or even start that conversation tomorrow. But I think getting those measures in place and getting those check dams across, or regrading out that gully that's forming, is going to be really important in reducing the amount of sediment coming down this area. And this, if it will overtop if it's not maintained, and also enter the road and potentially impact the wetland watercourse. So that's why I'm concerned with that.
This is Commissioner Begman. When we approved this, as you said, we approved the application with one erosion control plan or whatever. And it seems to me like whomever we approved it to, whether that's Bruno, that person should be responsible, and whatever it takes to talk to the other developers and make sure that they're doing the internal erosion controls, if that was on an original plan, that's where whomever we approved for this, that person bears the responsibility. That's how I see it. Or they have to come back with a different application with all the different people, with all the different erosion controls, and nothing happens. We stop everything until we get every single one of these lots approved.
This is Commissioner Ormrod. Jamie, in the cease and correct order, it says any further site work on property known as 175 Cherry Hill Road. What is that? What comprises 175 Cherry Hill Road? Is it
So yeah, it's 175 Cherry Hill Road at time of issuance of the subdivision permit. So basically, because all the lots have been broken out and there's the roadway, I was trying to encompass everything. So essentially, that's going to be I don't know if you can see.
It includes the lots 1 and 8 that are under construction or development right now?
Yeah, it would include lots 1 through 11 and the road.
Yeah,
and
so
it would also include the Regional Water Authority open space property.
wouldn't the way this work is, I mean, it's not, I don't know if it's the commission's, that's it's not our problem really, but if we uphold the cease and correct, then no site work is going to be allowed. And then they're going to be forced to address the issue of sediment and erosion controls before any site work is allowed. Is that not what the cease and correct says?
Cease any further site work on property known as 175 at time of issuance of subdivision permit, aside from sediment and erosion control repair and improvement work and site stabilization through vegetation establishment in areas that are either at final grade or that will not be disturbed in the near future to reduce on-site potential. So yeah, and like I was saying before, when I say site work, I mean ground disturbance, shovel work. I don't mean, building walls, roofing, siding. That's kind of standard language. I did tweak it a little bit to address the specifics of the site in regards to the subdivision property. So that's one of the things, again, I think that is worth discussing. Do we take a similar approach to the previous enforcement order? Or is that something the commission feels is warranted? Essentially, this would stop them. At this point, I don't think that there's anything that needs to be backfilled. I think that it would just, or I don't know, on lot 2 there might be.
No, they backfilled.
They did, okay.
Yeah.
So it would essentially stop them from excavating new foundations.
Yeah, and that's Commissioner Ormrod, I think we have to go a similar direction as the previous enforcement. It sounds like the problem areas were addressed, and it sounds like they took enough measures or to prevent this, and I think we have to monitor it over this next storm here, and then I think at some point we're gonna have to get an idea of what wetland impacts, I guess now that if any result from this or the previous one. So I think that's the direction this is going here.
So I agree. I definitely think they've taken some measures to improve things out there. I would like to see some additional improvements at the very least in relation to this right here, this concentrated flow of water through the site. There's a huge amount of material that's been eroding, and it's constantly a maintenance problem for the silt fence. The silt fence is overtopped. It's been loaded to capacity. It also has caused issues over here. It's not visible on this. That might be part of it. There is a pocket wetland within the Cherry Hill right of way below this site. So if there is a breach of erosion controls over here, it could have an impact on wetlands. And I mean, this is something they're going to have to address if lots 5 or 6 are to be developed anyways, because the amount of water coming through here is just significant.
Yeah,
and then making sure that I don't know where they are with the controls improvements along I'm gonna say lot 7 and 8. But making sure that that's kind of a long-term solution is also something I'd be looking at. So I'm optimistic that they've patched it enough for this storm event. But water finds a way, and there's not a lot of space for it to go here. So I think I'd be looking to ultimately make sure that that's addressed and that any potential overtopping of these hay bales from water coming off of this slope is addressed. And if those two things are addressed, I'd be fine with taking the same approach of if everything's looking good and we've got some longer term solutions, what appears to be long-term solutions in place for those problem areas, that I could sign off on them moving forward. And then you guys could take up that review and confirm that you think that's appropriate when you review potentially results from a wetland scientist addressing the condition of the impacts to any wetland watercourse areas. That would kind of be my recommendation. But we still have, I think, 2 people to hear from. I'm not entirely sure if we have everyone here for representation for everyone here this evening. I know we at least have somebody from RWA. Do we have anyone from Waterside?
No. He was supposed to attend tonight, but he's not here. Jamie, if I may.
Sure.
Bruno Chacon. I can do what we talked about today, if it's okay with you, for lots 3, 4, and 5. And create those check dams where those those gullies are happening from 3 all the way down to 6. If you want, I can have Giuliano. Giuliano's going to have to write it up, right, and make a suggestion of what he thinks. Because if it'll help, I'll put silt fence splitting all those lots off and then creating those check dams all the way down.
I think that would be a good idea. I'd be open to, I think you should confirm with Giuliano, and if they have a difference of opinion, I'm more than happy to listen to it. I think there needs to be some sort of something addressing that. That's a wide expanse to have just on one silt fence that doesn't even follow the contour. So basically the wire's going to hit that silt fence and just run down the silt fence. So you're basically creating a long slide. So I think that that's a great way to move forward. I think you should follow up with Giuliano Associates with those topics and see, what their recommendation is. If you are to put in check dams, they should provide what type of material is appropriate and the proper spacing.
Mr. Bassman, why doesn't this come down to meeting with staff, Giuliano, Bruno, to decide what the course of action is going to be going forward, number 1. Number 2, monitor the situation when we have the rain events, and make sure that there's a delineated list of things that are supposed to address the situation and correct it. And and everything else gets put on hold until the wetland scientist as well has input, hopefully for the next meeting where we can review all this.
Yeah, so right now they are supposed to do erosion control reports after any rainfall of 1/2 inch or greater. I know the representative from Giuliano Associates that was kind of lead on this project is no longer with Giuliano Associates, and so somebody else has taken up reins on it, and they had emailed me on Monday stating that they won't be able to make it out to the site until next Monday. So I made a point of making sure I got out there. So we do have monitoring from the engineering firm, and I will certainly be keeping an eye on it. I think that there's some things I will follow up on with the players in regards of confirming kind of who's doing what, and I think relating that to the measures that are going to be implemented for future maintenance will be helpful.
Excuse me,
And then-
Commissioner Basswood, did you say that Monday, Juliana was available?
Well, I think their email said they wouldn't be available until Monday, which led me to believe they would probably be going out on Monday, but they didn't confirm. So I'm not sure. Do you know if that's the intent, Bruno?
Yeah, that's what he said. It was Monday that he would be able to go out there.
Well, why wouldn't a face-to-face on Monday on site?
Yeah,
Where
so if
there's
you can,
agreement on the immediate actions to take place be a good step forward.
so if you can let me know what time would be good to meet out there. Once you touch base with Sean, that would be great. And if we can get John out there as well, that would be great. And I know we have Evan Moore from RWA if we want to pivot that way for a minute, and if he wants to join us, if he's available.
Hello. How's everyone doing?
All righty.
Yeah, so I think Jamie captured everything really well, the conditions on site. I'd have to absolutely agree with I think maintenance is probably the most important thing here. And I'd love to see some of the exposed areas vegetated as quickly as possible. The area around the basin, that was not vegetated too long ago, and that was a problem area this last go round. I went to look at the site on Monday around 2:30. There's a lot more grass on that slope, and it seems to be helping a lot in that area. There are some, rills forming in that area, but I think vegetating as soon as we can is probably one of the best ways to keep a lot of this sediment in place. Other than that, I think, Bruno's been pretty good staying on top of things, but like Jamie said before, the maintenance is really key. Once that kind of slips through the cracks, then that's when these problems start arising. So those are my observations.
And does RWA have any concerns with a wetland scientist taking a look at the water course and any adjacent wetland areas that may have been impacted?
No, we don't have any concerns with that. We'd be happy to let somebody on the property. Just, let us know when, and we'll be sure to inform the people who need to be informed that people are accessing our property.
It looks like we may have one of the individual lot owners present. At least one. I think it's just one. Maybe two. I'm seeing two people I don't normally see. If that's the case, do you want to open it up to see if any of those lot owners have any questions for the commission, Peter?
Certainly. Given the fact that I guess we don't know which lots they may be interested in. Does it, let's see, I see Colleen and Buddy Field. Are those the two that you're suggesting?
Buddy
Jamie?
Field is Wood Lane. I think maybe Anthony Corso and Colleen. I'm not sure if they're here for this or not. I don't remember all the individual lot owners' names off the top of my head. None of them look like they are jumping at the
Right, it's still
bit
muted.
to speak. I think if they are here, I don't know. All right, so are we taking the same approach as the last one? And essentially, we'll have an on-site meeting on Monday, see how things held up, if things are looking good and that there's some sort of internal control established and a plan to vegetate areas that can be vegetated, such as, that the 10 feet off of the roadway, which should help with any, any stormwater coming into that area if there's some vegetation there to help filter it and slow it down. That things can, site work in general could resume, and that a soil scientist should investigate the impacted wetlands and watercourse areas to see if there's any mitigation that needs to occur, or if it's at a level where it should be able to balance out. And in the interest of the fact that that's going to take time to schedule, take the same approach of continuing it to the June 12th meeting, unless there's an issue that I feel needs to be brought back to the commission at the May 22nd meeting. Does that sound fair and reasonable?
I think there was also a mention, do you get weekly monitor reports?
It's not specifically weekly. It's after a storm event of half an inch or greater.
Yeah, I certainly would want to make that part and parcel of the plan.
Continue to receive monitoring reports half an inch or greater. Any other concerns or thoughts from commissioners?
No, sounds like a good plan.
Any questions from any of the parties? All right, well then I will see you guys on Monday. Just let me know what time.
Jamie, I'm gonna reach out to Sean tomorrow morning and find out, and then I'll set up an email and send it to you and John as well.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
You too. Item 7 on our agenda is an application for receipt, not action.
Before we move on to item 7, we had tabled the consideration of deliberation.
7, we don't have any discussion this evening, correct?
No, it's just for receipt.
So the only item that we have left is to decide whether we want to deliberate on the public hearing for Gould Lane. As Jamie indicated, the choice is we start deliberation, I guess, to give some kind of substance to a staff report that Jamie would create for our review, further discussion at the next meeting. Or plan B, we table deliberations until the next meeting. If we do that, I think I remember Jimmy saying that we needed an extension of a day.
We either need an extension of a day or to schedule a special meeting.
Or to schedule a special meeting.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. The property owners requested an extension for us, and we did an extension. I'm sure they should extend the same courtesy to the commission to extend it one day. That's my concern. With this late hour, I don't think we can have a meaningful discussion on this project. I could be wrong. I'm looking for other feedback from other commissioners.
Jamie, regarding the staff report, what impact does deferring deliberations to the next meeting have on the staff report or your workload?
So generally speaking, I don't draft potential conditions for consideration until the commission has started deliberations and given me some feedback on what it is you're looking for. I mean, there have been some things we discussed during the review process, so I could have those things available for the next meeting. And we could try and infill during the meeting to get to a point of making a decision. in one meeting potentially, and then consider from there whether we need another meeting. I also have kind of a reserved list of stuff, so to that point, wordsmithing a little bit might not be impossible. We do have a lot on our May 22nd agenda too, though. Although I suppose some of these items that I assume to be continued to the next, one of them will be June 12th instead of May 22nd.
Does anyone feel strongly that they'd like to start deliberations this evening? I had to think about how to phrase that.
Yeah, not particularly.
I think the sentiment with the silence sounds like
so in light of that,
defer deliberations.
In light of that, does the commission want me to kind of draft up conditions based on things we've highlighted, things I've said, well, we do generally have condition language for, and we'll start there and see if we can bang it out in one meeting. I think one benefit of doing it remotely is I can, to some extent, type and talk.
Hold on. If we have a staff report, well, we're not going to essentially have a completed staff report at the May, whatever it is, 2 weeks from now, May 22nd meeting. But we would have assuming we complete deliberations at the next meeting, we would have one for the first June meeting, no?
We could, yeah. I guess the question becomes whether you would need that extension. And so I don't know if you want to ask for the extension now or if you want to wait and see how things go May 22nd.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. Is the property owner still on or are they off?
It looks like there's
Still
representation still here. They've waited.
I guess I'm okay with kind of waiting for the extension to see how we make progress at the next meeting.
Yeah.
A lot of that might depend on how full the agenda is.
Yeah.
This is Commissioner Bergman. Where would it fall in our meeting agenda sequence?
So we'll have deliberations, we'll have an application for review, and then we have a handful of violation stuff.
What would come first?
Deliberations kind of they can fall where you want them to fall on the agenda. I would say we'd probably do applications for review and then probably deliberations and then enforcement. But deliberations and enforcement could kind of go either way. In the sense that we'll have a lot of people present for the enforcement orders. But also, I think generally the commission tries to reward going through the correct process as far as placement on the agenda. So,
and I'd like to do it when we're fresh, as opposed to late in the day, so to speak. Well, I guess we're okay with the application if there's only one. If we end up getting a couple, then we may want to.
Well, if we get any more applications, they'll just be for receipt. So.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll do what I can. And I'll maybe have a couple things in my pocket for where I think you might be going.
Sounds good.
We'll go from there. So we'll get continued to the May 22nd.
Okay, we don't have any agent approvals or correspondence and announcements. Any items the commission wants to discuss at this point?
Nope.
If not, I bid you adieu and keep your umbrella handy.
Yeah.
Good night.
All right, thanks. Good
Good night, everyone.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.